Welcome to AppleKnows channel. I am Apple, and today I will take you into a world where the ground beneath your feet can suddenly breathe fire, reshape landscapes, and even change the course of history. You think you know volcanoes, but the truth is far stranger, far more unbelievable than you expect. Imagine this: a single volcanic eruption once dimmed the sun across the planet and caused summer to disappear for an entire year. In 1815, the eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia was so massive that it threw so much ash and sulfur into the atmosphere that the year 1816 became known as the year without a summer. Crops failed, famine spread, and even literature was born from the gloom. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein during those dark, ash-choked skies. Hard to believe? Yet it is a fact. Volcanoes are not just destructive monsters, they are also creators. Most of the Earth's surface, including the seafloor you'll never see, exists because of volcanic eruptions. The mid-ocean ridges, stretching for more than 65,000 kilometers, continuously spit out new crust, shaping the planet silently beneath the ocean waves. You may never hear about it, but every single second, somewhere on Earth, magma is rising to form new land. Even more shocking, about 80% of all volcanic activity on Earth happens under the sea, unseen, unknown to most. But let me give you something even more haunting. The deadliest volcanic eruption ever recorded wasn't famous like Pompeii. It was the eruption of Tambora that killed more than 70,000 people directly, but its global aftermath led to millions dying from starvation and disease. Yet if we travel back further in time, to about 74,000 years ago, a supervolcano called Toba in present-day Indonesia erupted with such unimaginable force that it nearly drove humanity to extinction. Genetic studies suggest that the human population might have dropped to just a few thousand survivors. Yes, you heard me correctly, the reason you and I are here today may be because our ancestors somehow lived through that nightmarish eruption. And volcanoes are not always fiery red mountains. Some of them can explode without lava at all. Take the phenomenon of a limnic eruption. In 1986, Lake Nyos in Cameroon suddenly released a huge cloud of carbon dioxide gas, produced by volcanic activity beneath the lake. That invisible wave of gas traveled silently down into the villages, suffocating more than 1,700 people in minutes. No fire, no ash, no lava, just silent death carried on the air. Even more astonishing, volcanoes can affect life in ways that sound unreal. Did you know that volcanic ash, deadly in the moment, eventually creates some of the most fertile soils on Earth? The vineyards of Italy, the lush landscapes of Hawaii, the coffee plantations of Central America, they all thrive because volcanoes once destroyed those same lands. Death and life, destruction and creation, all bound together in volcanic fire. And then there is the sheer scale of power. The eruption of Krakatoa in 1883 was so violent that it produced a sound heard 4,800 kilometers away. People in Australia and on islands near Madagascar reported hearing it. That is still the loudest sound ever recorded in human history. The pressure waves circled the Earth multiple times, and the ash turned skies red around the globe for months. But I want you to hold on to this thought: volcanoes are not relics of the past. They are alive, breathing beneath us. Yellowstone in the United States, a supervolcano sitting under one of the most visited parks in the world, has erupted 3 times in the last 2.1 million years. If it erupted today, it would cover much of North America in ash and alter global climate for years. Scientists monitor it constantly, but the idea that a sleeping giant of that magnitude rests beneath tourists snapping photos is enough to keep you awake at night. And yet, despite all this danger, humans continue to live near volcanoes. Why? Because the benefits: rich soil, geothermal energy, new land, make the risk worth taking. More than 800 million people live within striking distance of active volcanoes today. Think about that, hundreds of millions living at the edge of nature's most explosive fury, knowingly or unknowingly gambling with forces that could change their lives in a heartbeat. If you thought volcanoes were just Earth's drama, let me surprise you: volcanoes exist across the solar system. On Jupiter's moon Io, eruptions shoot plumes of lava and gas hundreds of kilometers into space, taller than Mount Everest itself. Imagine standing on the surface of a moon where the ground trembles constantly, where rivers of molten sulfur glow bright yellow and red. Io is the most volcanically active body we know, proof that volcanoes are not just Earth's beasts but universal engines of chaos and creation. Back on Earth,
there's a volcano in Ethiopia that behaves like something out of science fiction. Erta Ale, nicknamed the Gateway to Hell, has one of the world's few permanent lava lakes. For decades, the boiling cauldron has bubbled without rest, glowing like an open wound in the desert.
To stand near it is to feel the planet's raw heart beating, to stare into a fire that never dies. And yet, scientists risk their lives climbing to its rim, collecting samples of the molten rock that could answer questions about Earth's beginnings.
Here's something even stranger: volcanoes can trigger weather so bizarre it feels unreal.
During major eruptions, the ash cloud doesn't just block sunlight, it electrifies the atmosphere, creating volcanic lightning. Flashes of light crack through towering plumes of ash, turning the sky into a battlefield of fire and electricity. In 2022, when the Hunga-Tonga-Ahunga-Hapai volcano erupted in the Pacific Ocean, its explosion sent a shockwave around the globe 4 times. It blasted water vapor so high into the stratosphere that scientists are still studying its effects on global weather. That eruption was the largest ever recorded with modern instruments, so powerful that it literally rang the earth like a bell. And if you think eruptions are always explosive, let's talk about lava flows that behave more like slow killers. In Hawaii, lava sometimes creeps forward at just a few meters per hour, moving silently, unstoppably, swallowing roads, houses, and even cars. People have watched helplessly as molten rivers consume their entire lives, inch by inch. It is not a sudden death, but a patient one.
Some volcanoes even create their own islands.
In 1963, off the coast of Iceland, the sea boiled as Surtsey erupted from the ocean floor. Within weeks, a brand new island had formed, rising from the waves where nothing existed before. Scientists quickly declared it off limits to the public, a natural laboratory where they could study how life begins from scratch on bare volcanic rock. To this day, the island is a living experiment in evolution, proving that destruction and birth are woven together.
And do you know what volcanoes smell like?
It may sound odd, but eruptions release gases rich in sulfur, giving off the stench of rotten eggs. Those fumes can be deadly in high concentration, choking life long before lava arrives. Yet at the same time, these gases hold secrets of Earth's interior, whispers from the depths we can never reach by drilling.
But perhaps the most haunting truth is this: volcanoes are unpredictable.
Despite all our satellites, sensors, and scientific progress, no one can say with certainty when the next eruption will strike. Villages on the slopes of Vesuvius, millions near Mexico's Popocatépetl, families around Mount Merapi in Indonesia, they live each day beneath a loaded gun, never knowing if the mountain will sleep for centuries or awaken tomorrow.
Did you know volcanoes can cause entire mountains to vanish in a matter of hours?
In 1980, Mount St. Helens in Washington state literally blew its top. The eruption was so violent that the mountain's height dropped by more than 400 meters in an instant. Imagine a peak that stood tall for thousands of years suddenly collapsing like a house of cards, its summit gone, its slopes replaced with a gaping crater that still smolders to this day.
And let's talk about supervolcanoes again. If you think Yellowstone is terrifying, consider Taupo in New Zealand.
Around 26,500 years ago, it unleashed one of the most powerful eruptions Earth has ever known, ejecting enough material to fill several thousand Mount Everests. Even in recorded history, its eruption around the year 232 CE was so massive that Chinese and Roman texts described strange red skies, thought to be caused by its ash.
These eruptions aren't just local disasters, they ripple across continents. But volcanoes don't always stay still.
There's one in Italy, Stromboli, that has been erupting continuously for more than 2,000 years. Locals call it the lighthouse of the Mediterranean because sailors used its fiery glow to navigate at night.
Think about that, a mountain that never truly rests, constantly throwing out sparks, as if the Earth itself were keeping watch. Some eruptions even make the ocean itself boil.
Underwater volcanoes, when they explode near the surface, can turn seawater into steam so violently that it tears apart ships or even spawns new islands. The sea doesn't just swallow, it burns, it rises, it creates.
And remember the Hunga-Tonga eruption I mentioned earlier?
Scientists later discovered it was the most powerful volcanic explosion in modern times, bigger than any nuclear bomb ever tested.
The blast reached the edge of space, disturbing satellites orbiting above Earth. Here's another shocking truth: volcanoes can alter the very air we breathe on a global scale.
When Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991 in the Philippines, it spewed so much ash and gas into the stratosphere that Earth's average temperature dropped by about half a degree Celsius for 2 years. That might not sound like much, but on a planetary scale, it was enough to change rainfall patterns and cause global agricultural shifts. One mountain, one eruption, and the entire climate of Earth shifted.
And volcanoes do not always bring fire, sometimes they bring ice.
In Iceland, eruptions beneath glaciers melt enormous amounts of ice, creating catastrophic floods known as jökulhlaups. These floods move with the force of entire rivers unleashed in minutes, sweeping away bridges, roads, and anything in their path. Fire meeting ice, it sounds like a fantasy, but it is a terrifying reality. The human stories are just as unbelievable. In 1943, a farmer in Mexico watched as a fissure opened in his cornfield. Within a single day, it grew into a cinder cone spitting fire and ash. In less than a year, that field had transformed into a mountain nearly 400 meters tall, the volcano Paracutin. The farmer went to bed surrounded by cornstalks and woke up living beside a newborn volcano.
And let's not forget Pompeii.
The eruption of Vesuvius in 79 CE preserved an entire city in volcanic ash, freezing people in the very moments of their last breaths. Their homes, their meals, even their expressions remain as if time itself was paused by the mountain's fury. It is one of the rare cases where history and geology locked hands to give us a time capsule of ancient life and death. Imagine this: there are volcanoes that don't erupt lava at all, but something entirely different.
In Azerbaijan, mud volcanoes spew cold mud and gas instead of molten rock.
Some of them are taller than skyscrapers, reaching over 700 meters in height, and they've been known to ignite with blue flames when methane gas catches fire. The sight of bubbling mud rivers and burning craters looks unreal, yet it's 100% natural.
And volcanoes don't just shape land, they can paint the sky.
The Krakatoa eruption of 1883 was so powerful that sunsets around the world glowed deep crimson for years. The fiery skies were so vivid that painters like Edvard Munch were inspired. He later admitted that the blood-red sky in his famous painting The Scream was based on those volcanic sunsets. Imagine an explosion so intense it leaves its fingerprints on art and culture.
Some eruptions have even been linked to myths and religions.
The massive eruption of Santorini, about 3,600 years ago, destroyed much of the Minoan civilization. Many historians believe this event inspired the legend of Atlantis, a powerful civilization wiped out in a single day by fire and sea.
In cultures across the world, volcanoes have been seen as gods, monsters, or gateways to the underworld. It makes sense: when a mountain suddenly breathes fire and darkness covers the sky, how else could ancient people explain it? Now here's a fact that shocks even scientists: volcanic eruptions don't always need fire to kill millions. Sometimes, it's the gases that linger quietly in the atmosphere.
Carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide released from volcanoes can suffocate valleys, poison water supplies, and even cool the entire Earth. The truth is, our planet's climate has always been shaped partly by volcanic activity. Some scientists even suggest that volcanic winters, the cooling periods after giant eruptions, have influenced the rise and fall of civilizations.
And volcanoes can happen in places you wouldn't expect. In Antarctica, under kilometers of ice, there are active volcanoes rumbling silently.
Mount Erebus, one of them, has a persistent lava lake that burns in the coldest place on Earth. Imagine standing on a frozen wasteland where the ground itself glows red with fire.
Volcanoes are also time machines.
The rocks they create trap gases and chemicals that give scientists clues about Earth's ancient atmosphere. By studying volcanic rock, we can read pages from Earth's history stretching back billions of years, long before humans ever existed. Some even believe that without volcanoes, life as we know it might never have begun, since early volcanic activity may have created the conditions for the first living cells.
And if you want one more unbelievable fact, here it is: Earth isn't done surprising us.
Right now, there are more than 1,500 potentially active volcanoes worldwide, and only a fraction are closely monitored.
Some of them could awaken at any moment, rewriting not just local history but global destiny. Volcanoes can burn blue.
On the Indonesian volcano Kawah Ijen, sulfur gases ignite as they escape cracks in the mountain, creating electric blue flames that can reach 5 meters high. At night, the slopes glow like something out of another world, rivers of neon fire flowing down the crater.
It's not fantasy, it's chemistry and geology combining into a spectacle few people on Earth will ever witness. Now imagine this: some volcanic eruptions are so massive they don't just create ash clouds, they literally change the shape of continents. The Deccan Traps in India, formed by enormous eruptions about 66 million years ago, covered an area larger than France in layers of lava. Scientists believe this event released so much gas into the atmosphere that it played a role in wiping out the dinosaurs. One chain of eruptions may have helped end an era of giants and opened the path for mammals, and eventually us, to dominate the planet. And volcanoes can move mountains of water. When they erupt underwater, the blasts can displace entire seas, generating tsunamis that travel thousands of kilometers. The Krakatoa eruption of 1883 triggered waves more than 40 meters high, wiping out over 160 coastal villages and killing more than 36,000 people. Survivors described waves carrying entire ships inland, leaving them stranded on rooftops. Here's another one that's almost too strange to believe: there are places where fire and ice erupt together. In Iceland, beneath Vatnajökull Glacier, volcanoes rumble under ice sheets kilometers thick. When they erupt, they create enormous subglacial lakes that eventually burst free, sending floods racing across the land faster than a car can drive. It's like watching a frozen dragon breathe fire beneath its icy prison. But the dangers aren't only explosive. Volcanic slopes are unstable, and when part of a mountain collapses into the sea, it can unleash megatsunamis. Scientists worry about Cumbre Vieja, a volcano in the Canary Islands. If a large section of it were to slide into the Atlantic, the resulting waves could devastate coastlines across the ocean. The idea that a single volcanic landslide could send walls of water racing toward continents is chilling, yet completely real. And volcanoes don't just happen on planets. Even on tiny moons like Enceladus, orbiting Saturn, scientists have discovered icy volcanoes, cryovolcanoes, that erupt not fire, but water vapor and ice particles. These icy plumes shoot hundreds of kilometers into space, and some researchers think they may even harbor the conditions for alien life beneath the frozen crust. So yes, volcanoes may not only shape Earth, they might also hide the secrets of life beyond our world. And if you think volcanoes are only a threat, remember this: without them, much of our modern world wouldn't exist. Many of the metals we use in technology, from copper and wires to rare earth elements in electronics, are concentrated in volcanic regions. Even the atmosphere we breathe today owes part of its makeup to countless volcanic eruptions over billions of years. In a strange way, volcanoes are both destroyers and silent architects of civilization. Let's begin with the biggest eruption in recorded history that most people have never even heard of, the eruption of La Garita caldera in Colorado, about 28 million years ago. Scientists estimate it released more than 5,000 times the material of Mount St. Helens. The eruption was so enormous that it's nearly beyond comprehension. If it happened today, it could blanket continents in ash and alter life on Earth permanently. And yet, few people outside geology even know its name. Here's something that sounds almost supernatural: volcanoes can generate their own tsunamis of air. These are called pyroclastic flows, avalanches of superheated gas, ash, and rock that race down mountainsides at speeds over 700 kilometers per hour. They're hotter than 1000 degrees Celsius, unstoppable, and they can incinerate entire cities in minutes. When Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, it wasn't lava that killed most of Pompeii's people, it was a pyroclastic surge that suffocated and burned them instantly. But even stranger, some volcanoes can trigger global-scale chain reactions. About 250 million years ago, eruptions in Siberia known as the Siberian Traps lasted for nearly a million years, releasing so much volcanic gas that they caused the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history. Over 90% of all species vanished. The world literally became a graveyard because the Earth couldn't stop erupting. Volcanoes also reach beyond science into the bizarre. Did you know there are entire towns that cook food using volcanic heat? In Lanzarote, part of Spain's Canary Islands, restaurants grill meat directly over vents in the ground where heat rises from a dormant volcano. In Iceland, people bake bread by burying dough in hot soil near geothermal springs. It sounds like something out of folklore, but it's a practical use of the planet's endless heat. And here's one that still shocks volcanologists: the eruption of Mount Pelee in Martinique in 1902 killed nearly 30,000 people in minutes, but one man survived. He was a prisoner locked in a tiny, thick-walled stone cell.
The pyroclastic flow burned the city to nothing, but his dungeon-like cell protected him from the inferno. He was found days later, badly burned but alive, a lone survivor of a volcanic apocalypse.
Volcanoes also have a way of hiding treasures. Obsidian, a volcanic glass formed from rapid cooling lava, was one of humanity's first tools, sharper than steel when fractured. Entire civilizations rose and thrived because volcanoes provided them with this razor-edged gift.
In a way, our progress as a species is tied to the fire of mountains.
And think about this, volcanoes can even change the stars you see at night.
After Krakatoa erupted in 1883, the ash in the atmosphere created such unusual refraction that people around the world reported seeing the moon appear blue or green. The very color of the heavens can shift because a mountain thousands of kilometers away explodes.
This is Apple from AppleKnows channel, and now it's time to bring this fiery journey to a close.
You've heard how volcanoes have shaped continents, silenced cities, shaken the skies, and even rewritten the course of life on Earth. They are destroyers and creators, killers and givers, silent architects of our world and potential architects of our future. From the blue flames of Kawa-Ijen to the ash of Pompeii, from oceans boiling with fire to ice erupting on distant moons, volcanoes remind us that our planet is alive, breathing, shifting, unpredictable. They hold the power to erase civilizations in hours, but also the gift of fertile soils, new lands, and the resources that sustain our modern lives.
And perhaps the most unbelievable fact of all is this: despite everything we know, volcanoes remain mysteries.
We cannot tame them, we cannot silence them, we can only watch, study, and respect the ancient power that lies beneath our feet. So the next time you look at a peaceful mountain, remember, inside it may be a sleeping giant, one that could change the world in a single breath.
This was Apple from AppleKnows channel.
Stay curious, stay amazed, and never forget the Earth is alive, and it never stops reminding us.